What I talked about was the auction market perspective in regard to maybe problems, we could call it, in regard to hauling cattle both in and out of an auction market. On the incoming side, we're talking about mostly consigners, but some feedlot operations as well. And my recommendation would be that, number one, be real careful about not overloading either a trailer or a truck. It does happen on occasion, and I know it's always tough when you get down, you got 1 or 2 or 3 head left, and it's easy to kind of push them on the trailer, but you may pay a big price for that by the time they get to the auction market. We don't like to see that. It's not good for the industry, and it's sure not good for you if you have a calf go down, gets either real dirty, or in some cases can lose their lives at the time as well. As far as other things that may think about, you want to be sure that your trailer's in good shape. You don't have any problem with footing, or you don't have any problem with boards or something missing in the floor. And then the other thing is really something that is an ongoing process at the ranch or the feedlot, and that is being sure that the cattle that you send to auction, or anywhere in fact, are easy to work with. Auction markets get a lot of blame for problems in handling, when the reality is that there are a number of cattle around that aren't that easy to handle. They've really not been around people, or they've not been around horses or other things, and we need to acclimate them to different types of situations, and that's really a job that needs to take place at the ranch or the feedlot before they come in. On the other side of the situation, on cattle going out, the big thing there again is know how to load your truck. Many people, there's a lot of turnover in the trucking industry, but we still need to train them. They need to know how many head go in each area of a truck and how to get them in there in an orderly fashion and a humane fashion. So we need to do that. Auction markets need to do a better job as well, but so do the trucking companies, and then we'll all be better off for it. When we're talking about, we can call them flighty cattle or wild cattle, depending on who's talking. What can we do about it? And as I mentioned before, really the two main things we can do, number one is genetics. I think definitely there is a case to be made for the fact that there are certain genetics that have some problems with handling. You need to identify that. And that's maybe up somewhat to the breed associations, but more so to the individual producers. Need to look into that. If you've bought a bull from somebody and he's been that way and he's produced calves that are not easy to handle, maybe you ought to look at different genetics to change that. But the other part, really, I think the largest part of that is just handling them. And it can cause problems at the auction market, but it causes problems all the way down the line. Cattle that are spooky, if you want to call it that, they're hard to handle at auction markets and everywhere else. They also don't do as well on feed. And so, everybody pays a price for that from the ranch all the way up through the packing plant. Well, no question, we are what many people call us the middleman. And we're very visual. Lots of people see us, people coming and going all the time, and so they see what goes on, and in many cases we get blamed for the problem. But the reality is that maybe all of us are a little to blame. We sure have a part in that. We need to do a better job of teaching our employees how to handle cattle, but it's also the part of the rancher and the producer to do some of that work there, and again, passing it on to the feedlot and onto the packing plant. We all need to do a better job. As far as turning them down or doing other things, that's really hard to do. We're in the business as an auction market, to serve our consigners. That's what we are. We represent them, and we want to do the best job we can. Unless it's really a tough situation, we're going to continue to do the best job that we can to handle them, sort them up in a fashion that'll bring them the most money. That's what we do for a living. But at the same time, if we have people getting hurt because of certain types of cattle or certain cattle from a producer, we're going to do something about that. We may have to tell them that we can't take their cattle anymore. That's very rare, but I think that if that's the situation, then we need to do something about it. The key is to move slow, especially around, but it's true in all types of cattle, but especially around wild cattle. And many times that's much easier said than done, but that's really a key to that. When you get them in an alley and you need to sort them, heifers from steers or whatever you're doing, they have a big flight zone. You need to stay as far out of that as you possibly can and move slow so that they're not fearful and get to jumping over the top of each other or try to get out over the top of corrals, things like that. Moving slow, I think, is a key point. Well, I think it's important that they work with their cattle. You know, there are some, I'm not going to say it's a lot of producers, but there are some that the only time they see their cattle is through the window of a feed truck or at a feedlot, the same story. We need to get out there and move through those cattle. Be a part of the pen, you know, even if it's on a daily or every other day basis, walk through them. Even at times, maybe even move them through your handling facilities, your test chute and things like that, even if you're not working them. In fact, especially if you're not working them, so it isn't a new experience for them. I know it sounds, some people are going to be rolling their eyes when they hear that, but you know what, once you get somebody hurt, you're going to wish that you'd done that, because these cattle are not familiar to some of these areas, and we need to get them accustomed to that, and things will be better all the way through the operation and even when they move there. The only thing is that it's a lot easier to teach them when they're young, no different with cattle than it is with people. If you can start being around them, moving with them, even from the time of birth. Of course, there's a lot of ranchers tag their calves right away and do other things. That's a great time just to be, you know, getting them acclimated, getting them used to being around a person. And then even when you're checking the other calves, you know, take some time and walk through the herd again, so they get used to it. And do that at every opportunity, even if you didn't think about it at first. Like if you're driving your feed truck and you see a calf that needs to be pulled, rather than just go in there and take that one out, you know, move through the herd, move through the calves, you know, make them move away from the bunk and even scratch their heads if you get a chance to do that. You know, those things just make a lot of difference just by getting them used to you and to being around people. And don't let it be just you. You know, the more people that, and the more things that they are become cognizant of, you know, whether it's a four-wheeler, a motorcycle, a horse, other people, all of those things make a difference. Get them used to it, so you know nothing bothers them when they move off of your place into others. No question, we've had some too tame to handle. That's not the same kind of problem, but we have definitely had what we call pets. You know, the ones that they're just waiting for you to scratch them on the head or give them a treat. In an auction market situation, I have to admit that's a real frustrating situation because they really want to follow you rather than be sorted or move on or whatever. But it's rare. There really isn't that many of them, and we recognize it and kind of giggle about it and do what needs to be done. I'd much rather go for the too tame than too wild.